What's up, everyone, and welcome to our second to last episode of our 2020 NBA Draft Player Profile Series. Today, we're talking about one of the top prospects in this year's draft, Anthony Edwards. You are here with Dr. Fantasy and my co host, the Fantasy Caveman. So, as I said, today we're talking about Anthony Edwards, 6'5, 225-pound freshman from the University of Georgia. During his freshman season, he averaged 19.1 points, 5.2 rebounds, 2.8 assists, and 1.3 steals. So let's kick it off with his strengths. Caveman, what do you have for Anthony Edwards' strengths?
Oh yeah, he's a very interesting guy because I honestly think this is the first guy that we've done because since we haven't done as of when we recorded this, we haven't done LaMelo yet. I think I think he's I think number one's coming down to Anthony Edwards or LaMelo. I don't think there's really any other guys in my opinion that are serious threats to go number one. Uh, so this is the first guy I would really talk about that could go number one overall. But the first thing with his strengths, is to me, he's an excellent ISO player, and that's in today's league. And we talk about this. A lot of guys in this league, draft class have good ISO ability, but in my opinion, he's the best ISO player in this draft. And when you talk about ISO, I mean that's 90% of the league today is isolation basketball. Uh, so it was actually you watch him like he doesn't go at you fast. He like lulls you to sleep with a variety of dribble moves, and then he just goes by you. Like he makes you fall asleep on defense, and then he goes right by you to the basket. And and what else? He has a killer crossover, and not that I'm comparing him to this guy, and we'll get the comparisons in a second. But there's another guy that had a famous killer crossover, who showered, who I will not name because Jordan will get mad at me for saying his name. But I mean, other than that, he also changes direction. This goes along with his being the isolation, but he changes directions very easily, and that's something that's really going to help him out at the next level. And then finally, before I kick it over to you here, he has a very now. You look at it, him only shooting 29% from three, and you think, oh, that must mean he's not that great of a 3-point shooter. But if you watched Georgia basketball last year, and they didn't have anybody that could really to score the ball other than Anthony Edwards. They didn't have they didn't really have anybody. So a lot of his shots were kind of contested and forced. So I think that drags down his percentage a little bit. He actually you watch it, I think it's a very smooth shooting stroke. I think that's definitely going to translate well with the next level. I just basically think it was a system and personnel that had a big part in his 3-point percentage.
Yeah, and I mean, he had a lot of offensive pressure on him at Georgia. I mean, when you talk about his 3-point percentage, he shot 8 a game, which is a pretty sizable number. So, I mean, he's getting James Harden-esque when you start getting to that number. Now, James Harden takes like 30 a game, but I mean, that's a pretty significant number in college basketball. So, yeah, he definitely had to shoulder a big chunk of the offensive load for them. But I mean, the first thing you notice with him, and anyone that talks about him, I mean, they call him a physical freak. I mean, he kind of is. He has size, he's strong, he's athletic, he's quick. And I mean, all of those attributes are what makes it easy for him to slash to the rim.
Yep.
You know, that's what I consider him, a classic slasher. And we'll talk, I'm sure, about a few NBA comparisons with that. But, I mean, he gets to the rim. You mentioned it looks easy, honestly. And, I mean, he was playing, like this highlight right here is from against Michigan State. I mean, one of the best teams in the country, number 3 at this time. But I mean, he just is blowing by people with ease, and that's a piece of his game. That's why he's so good in ISO, is because you can't guard him one-on-one. He's
Yep.
too fast. He's too quick. He's got a good jumper. Like, you have to. It's not like you can play him too close because he's going to go around you. But if you back off, he's got a good enough jumper to where he can kill you there. So I mean, there's
Yep.
no guarding Anthony Edwards one-on-one, and that's what makes his offensive upside. I mean, the sky is the limit. I mean, we could see him become one of the top 5 to 10 scorers in the entire league if
Yep.
he keeps developing and works on that efficiency. If he can have a high volume with high efficiency, I mean, we could be looking at one of the best offensive players in the entire league.
Yep.
You really could be. I mean, that's his ceiling, and that's why people love him as one of the top few picks, because you can argue boom, bust, everything in between. But I mean, I don't know if anybody has a higher ceiling offensively. Offensively is the key word than Anthony Edwards. And we'll talk about his defense and the weaknesses a little bit, but I mean, that's really all I have to say. I mean, you mentioned the shot mechanics as well. And I mean, he shot 78% or 77% from the free throw line, so that's a very good percentage. So he does have a good form, a good ability to shoot. So those percentages from the 3-point line definitely are a little deceiving. I do agree with that, but I mean, he creates off the dribble. I mean, there's really nothing he can't do offensively, and that's a really scary thought for him. I think a big piece is going to be the efficiency for him moving forward. But let's talk about his weaknesses. What do you have for that?
Yeah, and I'll say, in my opinion, the biggest one for you, which is because I know that this one particular weakness is why you probably don't like him as much. But I mean, the first thing I notice is he's not that good of a passer. I think the passing needs work. He usually, you watch him play. He's a lot of the times he's passing. He's going against a double team or going against a stronger defender in the paint versus passing it out to open shooters on the perimeter. I think he's going to need to work on just basically his overall shot IQ. I think the rest of his offensive game is good. He just needs to, I would say, shot IQ. So, because when you have that kind of size and that kind of athleticism, I mean, you're doing yourself a disservice by not taking good shots and not going to where you want to go to, because he has all the ability in the world to be an offensive force. And I think his shot IQ is something he can work on. He can learn to take better shots. Then finally, before I pass over to you to probably talk about the one weakness that I know that you see, was that he tries at the and this kind of goes into a shot IQ. I think sometimes he tries to play a little bit too much hero ball. He doesn't, like, at the NBA level. Like, I know he's gonna come into the league with all this offensive ability, but no matter what team, probably pretty much no matter what team he goes to, he's not gonna be able to just have the ball and try to be a hero at the next level. There's other guys on your team that will have just as good of a chance to hit shots as you. So that's definitely something. Just his overall shot IQ and his passing are the big ones for me.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that shot selection, and of course we can theorize about this, but a lot of it, we mentioned the workload that he had to take on at Georgia. So
Yep.
I'm hoping that's why he was forcing up shots. I mean, that's to be determined. If you put him on a team with another all-star, is he going to still feel that pressure and force up shots a la Russell Westbrook? I mean, you love Russell Westbrook, but that guy, I mean, he forces up bad shots. That's one of
foreshadowing here,
probably. I knew you'd probably bring that one up, but but yeah, I mean, I'm hoping, and I think this is what could turn him into and I think he still can be a superstar offensive player, but the shot selection is going to have a big role in whether he can take his game to a whole nother level. So that's to be determined. I think a lot of these guys just want to score the basketball, and I don't know enough about Anthony Edwards yet to know if he's just the kind of guy that's trying to put up stats or if he wants it all on his shoulders. That's to be determined. One thing that I will mention, he just turned 19 years old, just like 2 months ago. So it's not like he's going to turn 20 during the season. He'll be 19 for the entire year. So this is a young kid that has a lot of seasoning to do still. And, the fact that he has this upside already is just, I mean, he's going to be dangerous offensively in the NBA. I really don't have any doubts about it, honestly, when you watch him. But let's talk about the elephant in the room. Let's talk about his defense. I mean, he might as well go play for the Rockets now because he already plays
That
Rocket
would be.
style
I would love
basketball.
if they somehow
Got
I
rid
don't
of
know, I
Westbrook
don't
and
know how it
replaced
would
him with
happen,
Anthony Edwards.
but
But yeah, I mean, so defensively, he's horrendous. I mean, that's the reality is he really is one of those modern James Harden kind of guards that just wants to score the basketball. And the thing that drives me nuts about it, what did we just talk about with his strengths? This is an athletic freak. He can keep up with anybody his size. He's strong enough and physically gifted enough to deal with their other guards that are bigger and have strength. He has no reason not to be a great. I mean, he should be an elite defender with his physical gifts. And he just shows a complete lack of caring on the defensive end. I mean, and I talked a
yeah.
lot about how defense is just attitude and effort. And I mean, I beat that point to a dead horse, but I really believe that. And Anthony Edwards just does not care to play defense. It's not, he doesn't have any effort. He doesn't put anything into the defensive side of the basketball. Not only that, Georgia was actually better efficiency wise when he was off the floor. That's very concerning. I mean, we can talk about all of his offensive strengths, but I mean, if your team is better defensively without you, I mean, you can be an even average defender with his offensive ability, but when you start becoming a liability, that's a big problem. And he has no awareness. I mean, he tends to play literally in the way of whatever defensive scheme they're playing. I mean, I read some scouting reports where Anthony Edwards is actually in the way because he doesn't know where to go on defense, and he doesn't show any motivation to, go anywhere. He doesn't really care. I mean, that's what it boils down to is he doesn't have any effort on the defensive side of the ball. And I fear that he is going to be one of those players where his offensive talents will be enough to where he will never have to play a second of defense in his entire career. And I fear that he's going to become a Russell Westbrook player. And I mean, I've said it before. I don't think players like that will ever win an NBA championship unless they put something into the defensive side of the ball. But I mean, I think that's a reality with Anthony Edwards. He could be one of the 5 to 10 best scorers in this league and be a horrendous defender. And I mean, like I said, I'm crossing my fingers because he could become a transcendent player if he wants to play defense, if he really wants to. So I hope, like I said, he's only 19 years old. Maybe with the right coaching staff, he can go in and become a better defender. But I have a lot of hesitation to say that'll happen because very rarely do we see that in today's league. So we'll see what happens, but I'm definitely concerned with it. And like I said, that doesn't change his offensive upside, but I definitely think it hurts his chances of being a championship caliber player. I mean, I'll say that is I'm not ready at 19 years old to call this guy a loser yet, but give me 2 more years and I'll probably be
Oh
ready.
God, here we go.
If he's 21 years old and he still doesn't know how to even be an average defender, I just think with his offensive, just become an average defender. But if he doesn't become that, he won't ever be a winner in this league. There you go. I said it. But like I said, 19 years old, giving him the benefit of the doubt. Not going to go that far yet, even though I just did. And let's talk about some NBA comparisons because these are all going to be wonderful All-Star potential Hall of Fame names. So let's hear who you have, Caveman.
All right, and you obviously mentioned the name I was the top name I had on my list, and I know you had you know that I had this name at the top of my list. That's Russell Westbrook. I mean, in Russell Westbrook's defense, I think Russell Westbrook tries on defense, but he's just not smart about it. And he doesn't have a very high defensive IQ. Like, I think the effort is there for Russ on the defensive end. He's just not smart about it whatsoever. Uh, so that's kind of that's an interesting one. I mean, a couple other names I had down, and again, I struggled to find a lower end comparison for him, to be honest with you. Like, all these guys, like, he has so much ability and potential that, like, it would have felt insulting to try to find a lower end comparison. I said like a stronger Zach LaVine. He's much stronger. He's much stronger than Zach LaVine and has more defensive potential. I mean, Zach LaVine's isn't exactly known as the best defender either. But even if he becomes like Zach LaVine level defensively, and Zach LaVine is like might not even be average. He might be slightly below, but Anthony Edwards isn't even slightly below average. He's like terrible. Like, the worst you can possibly get defensively is what he is. So that's another name I had on there. I had a couple other. I had Victor Oladipo down as well. I see a lot of shades of Victor Oladipo in him. I also see a lot of. I see shades of Donovan Mitchell in his game as well. Just now, I think Donovan Mitchell plays a little bit better defense, but pretty much everybody plays better defense than Anthony Edwards. So I don't know how much that is saying, but those are some of the names I had down.
Yep, and I had a lot of the same names. I mean, if you want to sound a little crazy, I think Victor Oladipo may be his low-end comparison. Oladipo has made 2 All-Star teams, but I mean, I'll go out on a limb and say I think Anthony Edwards will make multiple All-Star teams. I don't think that's that crazy to say. So if at the end of his career, at worst, he's a 2-time All-Star, I mean, that's still a great career. So
Yeah.
I think that's a fair low-end comparison for him. I have Donovan Mitchell as well. I think their offensive games mimic each other. Donovan Mitchell isn't a great defender either, but he is better. Even defensively, I will say Anthony Edwards has some speed, and he does use it to pick up a few steals. I guess that's a positive. Not that that's all that defense is, but Donovan Mitchell is very similar in that regard. So I see a lot of flashes there. And speaking of flashes, Dwayne Wade, I mean, I'll say that Dwayne Wade growing up was my favorite player, actually. He was like one of my idols growing up, and I see quite a bit of Dwayne Wade in the way that he slashes to the basket. Dwayne Wade never really developed a great three-point shot. He had more of a mid-range game. But I think Anthony Edwards has a little more potential as a three-point shooter compared to Dwayne Wade. But the speed to which he gets to the basket and the way he slashes, and you can tell he has great control of his body, Anthony Edwards, because he just weaves in between defenders. And it just you're like, okay, I mean, it looks so easy, but I mean, the body control he has with his speed is very similar to Dwayne Wade. And I think that's pretty big praise for a future Hall of Famer there. So, but that's the kind of offensive ability he has. I really hope he develops into a good defender, because I want these guys I don't want him to be a loser and never win an NBA championship. But that's the reality. You have to learn how to play a little bit of defense. And I think with the right coaching staff and maybe a strong veteran presence, he could do that. But, we'll see what happens. That's going to be the difference between him being a superstar or maybe a generational kind of player. So I don't think I have anything else on that end. Let's talk about some ideal fits. This one for me is one of the most challenging, and you and I talked about it before we started recording. If Anthony Edwards does not go number 1, I don't know how far he falls. Based on his talent, I don't see any possible scenario in which he falls out of the top 5. I don't see any way that happens. But I mean, if he does not go number 1 to the Timberwolves, let's say the Knicks trade up to number 1 and take LaMelo, or the Pistons, or there's a lot of rumors of that going on. Golden State most likely is not going Anthony Edwards. Charlotte probably not. The Bulls possibly, and the Cavaliers. So he'll probably go 4 or 5 if he slips. But I mean, even still, I wouldn't consider that the biggest need of the Bulls or the Cavaliers, but you can't pass up on a offensive talent like this at 4 or 5, in my opinion. It would be ridiculous if he made it that far. So, in my opinion, I thought a lot about this because I didn't think that he would be a great fit with the Timberwolves initially. But the more I think about it, I do think it would be a pretty good fit. I mean, they do need a strong defender. Their defense is not very good right now. But when you think about his poor shot selection and him not being efficient, if you have D'Angelo Russell and Karl Anthony Towns next to you, I mean, there's not pressure. I mean, you have 2 all-star players. He can really grow and develop into his offensive game and work on becoming more efficient. And not to mention for the Timberwolves, that gives you a 3-headed monster that, I don't know if they could ever win a championship together, but that's a fun 3-headed monster to watch. There's no doubt about that. And as much as I prefer D'Angelo Russell to play off the ball, I mean, he's shown enough ability to be a playmaker and be a good mix of scoring, and he can fill either. He's a combo guard. Not that he's the ideal facilitator, but I think Anthony Edwards and D'Angelo Russell could play next to one another. Now, defensively, that would be horrendous, but I think that's the best fit for him. I think there's not a lot of pressure. He's not going to have to be the guy from day one, and I think that it would make a lot of sense for them to go in that direction.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't really see the Golden State fit. I mean, that'd just be kind of adding some another. I just don't see it. I mean,
yeah.
I honestly think the Timberwolves are either gonna, if they don't trade it, which I still think there's a possibility the Pistons. I mean, not the Pistons, but the Timberwolves trade the pick, whether it's to Detroit or something like that. But the Timberwolves keep their pick. I'm pretty confident they're gonna go Anthony Edwards or LaMelo. But if they don't go Anthony Edwards, and if they keep the pick and take LaMelo, for instance, I mean, I think maybe it then a situation where you see a team like Atlanta trade up where, I mean, granted, he's probably not a good fit defensively with Atlanta either, because we know if there's one thing that Atlanta's known for is not playing defense. So I guess Anthony Edwards does fit right in then.
Yeah.
But you add his ability offensively, pairing him with Trae Young. I think that would be a very
John Collins, yeah,
and John Collins, and then all the shooters they have. So I think that would be an interesting fit. I mean, and another team. And this is more just based off the fact that they need star power, is the Detroit Pistons. I mean, the reality is with a team like the Pistons, they need a guy that has superstar, best player in the league type potential. And honestly, this is probably the first prospect that I've said this, but I honestly think with Anthony Edwards' offensive ability, and even if he puts in, even if he is an average defender, I honestly think Anthony Edwards can be the best player in this league. Not obviously, probably not for a while because LeBron's still around and we have a lot of. But honestly, he has that kind of offensive ability that if he even becomes an average, we've seen guys with incredible offensive ability become elite players in this league without really having it on defense. I mean, you look at a guy like Luka. I mean, remember back a while back we were talking about whether Luka or Giannis, and we were looking at defensive numbers, and Luka was like 330th in the league in defense. So honestly, I mean, do I think that Anthony Edwards will become the superstar that Luka already is? I mean, maybe. I mean, it's the potential's there. The potential is there for Anthony Edwards to become a top player in this league. I think it's mainly on, just like you said, the effort on the defensive end, and I definitely think in the right system with the right coaching staff, I definitely think that's something that he could work on to become not even like just effort. Just you need the coach to just push him towards just putting in more effort, and that's really all. That's all he needs to become a top end player in the league.
So I want to say something that just came to my head about Atlanta being an interesting fit. Anthony Edwards, born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia, went to Georgia University. So I don't know. That's a little intriguing. I mean, he's not gonna fall to 6, but I mean, we've seen the Hawks make a big move on draft day before. So I mean, why not move up a few spots and grab your guy if you because him and Trae Young and John Collins would be fun to watch. So I've never thought about them trading up.
Reality. I mean, like I said, the reality is if the Timberwolves don't go him at 1, I mean, although nothing would surprise me in this draft, but I don't see the Golden State taking him at 2, and I don't see Charlotte. Although I think I think he would be a terrible fit with Charlotte, but I don't see Charlotte taking him at 3. So if you're starting to look at number 4, I mean, if you only have to trade up 2 spots, so if Anthony Edwards is still there at 4 and you're the Hawks, you only have to trade up a couple spots, I think that's probably something they could pull off. So do I think it's likely that he ends up in Atlanta? Probably not. But is it realistic? I think it is, depending on who goes number 1. If he doesn't go number 1, I think I can easily see him going to a team that trades up to get him.
Yeah, I personally think if he doesn't go number 1, you're going to see someone trade up to get him. And I mean, Golden State's been very vocal in being willing to trade down. So maybe you see a team jump to 2 just to make sure no one else can grab Anthony Edwards. I think that could be a likely scenario. Or if Golden State just makes their pick, somebody trades up with Charlotte to make sure that Chicago doesn't take Anthony Edwards. Because if Chicago has the pick, they could say trading a 2, we're just taking Anthony Edwards. So
they can also trade up to get trade up to number 1, because you know, if Minnesota's not sold on Anthony Edwards or LaMelo, like it makes sense for them to trade back. And honestly, I also have a hard time believing that the Golden State Warriors are going to take a LaMelo. That's another one. I just don't see it. I mean, so realistically, if you're a team like the Pistons, if you're a team like the Hawks, like it makes sense to go up to number 1 if the price is right, because you're not going to get. I don't think there's a guarantee that Charlotte doesn't take him at 3.
Mm-hmm.
So you mean, because just his office potential alone, Charlotte could easily be going best player available, and if he's there at 3, Anthony Edwards is the best player available. So I mean, he's going to be a very key name to watch when it comes to any of these draft day trades that go down at the top of the draft, because Anthony Edwards, I feel, is going to very much be a factor. Like if there's a growing consensus that at near draft day that Minnesota is going to take Anthony Edwards, they could then, okay, we won't take Anthony Edwards if you give me this, and this.
Yeah.
So I think Anthony Edwards definitely is going to be if there's a draft day trade, he's gonna be involved with one of those picks.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's between him and LaMelo. If Minnesota's just content on taking Anthony Edwards, I think then the competition to trade up for LaMelo begins. But if the Timberwolves take LaMelo, I think the competition to trade up for Anthony Edwards begins. So it really is dependent on what the Timberwolves plan on
Timberwolves
doing.
hold the cards.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of that's why it's so interesting. And I don't understand. Everyone keeps talking about the Knicks trading up. Why aren't we talking about the Knicks trading up and taking Anthony Edwards? I mean, I think Anthony Edwards is a better bet to become a superstar than LaMelo, and that's what they need right now. I mean, that's just a random thought. No one's ever once mentioned them trading up, and there's been trade scenarios of them going all the way to number 1 to get LaMelo, but never Anthony Edwards. So I think that's kind of
RJ Barrett.
Yeah, but I mean, I think they could play together. I mean, there's no reason they couldn't. So I don't know. I think that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And this may seem like a bizarre statement, but I think I'd be very surprised if the teams that have the top 5 picks right now stayed that way on draft day. I don't know. I feel like this is the perfect year for especially with a lot of these teams being uncertain, a lot of question marks around these prospects. This is the year where teams are going to make trades towards the top. So I would honestly be surprised if it was just a standard Minnesota, Golden State, Charlotte, Chicago, Cleveland, Atlanta, Detroit, New York, we're done. Like there feels like in that top 8, there's going to be one or more moves on draft day, which always makes it fun, honestly.
And especially with this draft being uncertain, I mean, you can call it. I mean, you can look at it either way, but to me, this is the uncertainty surrounding this draft in particular is what's gonna make it very interesting because we're all gonna be glued to the screen to find out. There's probably some player that is gonna go in the top 10 that we never heard of before. It probably gonna be it would not shock me because we've covered about, I don't know the exact number, but we've done 25-ish of these or something, somewhere around there. These profiles. It would not surprise me if someone we didn't cover made it to the top 10. And that's
Marcus Howard.
Marcus Howard into the top 10. And if it had probably one of those weird pronouncing European players that we haven't covered. But it would not shock me if you see that kind of situation where an unknown makes it into the top 10. So, I mean, bottom line for me is just I actually have absolutely no idea where Anthony Edwards is going to go. So that's just he's going to make it very interesting on draft night.
Yep. Looking forward to the draft. We're only recording one more episode. We got to talk about the youngest Ball brother. LaMelo will be the last episode. So if you're curious on our thoughts on him, make sure you tune in for that. Subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you guys next time.
Yep.